Good morning. Happy spring.
Happy spring. Boy, we got some spring this week, didn't we?
We sure did. It made up, right?
Yeah, it was welcome. Good to see everybody. Hey, if you're jumping online, we're going to just warm the place up a little bit,
We are. It
and
warmed
you
up yesterday.
just got back from
sunny Florida.
Florida.
That's right.
Where the sand is on the beach and not on the road.
That's right. We were watching the weather in Colorado from Florida,
So
saying,
last
glad
Sunday-
we aren't there.
Yeah, I know what you were really thinking about us. Tell us what you were really thinking about us when you were laying by the pool in the sun in 80-degree weather while we're like can't get out the front door because of the snow. What were you thinking?
We were thinking and probably texting a few friends saying, suckers, too
oh,
bad.
No. Oh, gee. What? Seriously?
It looked like it was Maine, you know? Like we came home and, I mean, it was, what, Dennis? Snowing more than 2 inches an hour here?
Yeah, it was, we needed it.
That's
we
what I've
needed
heard.
The snow. We needed the moisture.
If you're not from here, I mean, it was like the 4th biggest snowstorm of all time.
In Denver, yes.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, it was, it paralyzed.
So we were not
Roads
here.
were shut down. Interstates, I'm from Wyoming, so I take a special interest. Interstates were closed from border to border, north to south for 2-3 days even.
Yeah, they plowed, ironically, 1 lane roads here.
Well,
in Maine,
what's
that
wrong
does
with
not
that?
happen. In Maine, they clear the roads, and so
they
people
throw
can
all
drive.
the snow where? Up on your house or what?
Yeah, up to the. I mean, you have walls of snow. You're driving, so you can't see.
Okay.
But they clear the roads so people can drive. You know, whatever. They're used to it. In
So
Maine.
what'd you do in Florida?
Oh, sunshine the whole time. Soaked it up. Just soaked it up. We ate seafood, which I've really missed since we've been here.
How many of you like seafood?
Yeah.
How many out here like seafood? Oh, yes. Now listen to this. She's going to make your mouth salivate.
Fried, fresh clam strips.
Fresh. That's the key word.
Scallops.
Fresh.
Shrimp, fresh. There was alligator on the menu.
Alligator. How
But
many
I
of you have
did
eaten
not eat
alligator?
that.
Anybody eaten alligator? Oh, those two have.
No.
Alligator. Did you like it? They liked it.
I did not try it. I was not up for that challenge.
Come on, Wendy.
No.
Come on.
I did not.
Your husband goes in the winter and climbs Mount Evans.
Mount Albert, yes.
Albert,
yeah.
yesterday.
Yesterday.
In the snow, Mount
Yes.
Albert. And you won't taste alligator.
No,
I had alligator boots one time, but I didn't, eat them.
Yeah, I've had frog. I've eaten frog
Oh, I
in
like
the
frog.
Philippines.
How many of you have had frogs? Frog legs? Yep. Did you like them? No, they didn't like them. I liked them.
It tastes like chicken.
Tastes like kind of tough chicken.
Yeah.
I liked them, but it's kind of novel.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to not think about where they came
That's right.
from. There's a lot of
Close your
things
eyes.
you eat where if you can't think about where they came from.
Yeah. So it was a
was
lot
fun.
of fun. It was really relaxing,
Yeah.
really beautiful, especially not thinking about the snow. And I'm very tan.
Yes, look at this Florida glow. Yep, the Florida tan.
So yeah, it was great not to shovel. And we had JL Chap haulers.
Oh yes.
Come and clear our house, so we weren't doing it at 12:30 a.m.
Yep. So he brought his shovels and came over.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it was great. And then it was 60 degrees yesterday.
Here. Yes.
Here in Colorado, so cleared a lot of the snow.
I mean, that's one of the great things about snow in Colorado in the spring.
That's right.
Although, this snow is so deep, it's like
Still
stuck
here.
around.
And more is coming, right?
We're not going to get too much here. Maybe an inch I saw last night on the weather.
Yeah.
We're going to get some rain maybe today, a little cooler.
Yes, but yesterday was the first day of spring, and it's beautiful.
How many of you like spring? Favorite season of the year? Maybe not that, but like spring. Yep. What's your favorite season? Fall. How many like fall? Who else? Winter's your favorite season? Nobody. What are you all doing here? Well, I guess it's spring now, so. How many like summer?
Yes.
Favorite season?
Summer.
So it seems like, how many of you like fall? So it seems like fall and spring are the favorite seasons of the year.
Yeah.
They're the two most moderate seasons.
Yeah.
Summer can be hot, winter can be cold.
But there's no humidity in Colorado, so
That's true.
It's beautiful.
That's why you have to use hand lotion and
drink
nose
lots
drops
of water.
and eye drops if you have contact.
Yes. Yeah. So it's glorious. Yeah.
So we're glad that you're here.
Yes.
A lot going on at the church. Easter's 2 weeks away.
Speaking
Excited
of spring,
about that.
Yes.
Jump online, see who's here on Facebook, see who's here on our webcast, our live cast.
Yes, and speaking of Easter, we have a lot of opportunities for Easter.
Yes.
Check it out online. We have a lot of links for you. Make sure that
you need to sign up to come to a service. We have a Good Friday, and then 4 Easter services.
That's right.
1 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday.
And all of the kids are back, so make sure that you sign up your kids.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're bringing kids to Easter, you need to sign them up separate.
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So make sure you get your kids, get you. You want to be here. We have great things planned.
It's going to be, I think there's going to be people coming on Easter.
Yeah, especially because we missed it last year.
People are getting vaccinated,
Yes.
and I think there's a little more. We'll be safe in this room. We're only set for 20% full. So if you're wondering, hey, are you going to be big crowds here? No. We're going to be 20%. We're going to set for 20% of our room. Our room holds 1,000, and so we're going to, maybe have 200 per service. So you'll, masks and all that. So we hope that you can come if you feel safe enough to come. Otherwise, we're going to be online.
That's right. So follow those links. We have a great service for you.
Welcome to the Crossroads weekend, where we're looking forward to a better Easter sunrise. I'm Katie Martinez, and here's what's on our minds today. It's been a year of trauma and resilience. Needless to say, the pandemic has upended our lives. It dawned on us when the grocery stores ran out of toilet paper, when we lost work, risked our lives on the job, or finally gave in and bought an office chair for home. It dawned on us when we canceled a wedding, graduated from high school in our own backyard, or when we gave birth, masked and alone. It dawned on us when aunts died, siblings died, and parents died, and we realized with crushing clarity that COVID-19 was not going to be a disease that happened in other countries. When did COVID hit home for you? For me, it was when Dave and I followed Ryan through the Good Friday experience online. Ryan was in his home, directing us at home to gather our own communion elements and light a candle. And I realized in that moment that everything had changed. And so we find ourselves here today, not out of the woods, but with reason to hope for a better Easter sunrise in 2021. Thanks to ample square footage at the Taft Avenue facility and your commitment to clean hands, face coverings, and social distance, we'll be able to gather for a Good Friday experience and 4 Easter services online and in person. And we'll offer an Easter Kids program for birth through 5th, online and in person. Now don't miss this. If you or your kiddos wish to attend in person on Good Friday or Easter Saturday or Sunday, you must visit crossroadscolorado.com/Easter and make a reservation. And you can imagine it would be wise to reserve your spots early. For the sake of community health, we'll be capping attendance at 25% capacity. Even if your kids are already enrolled in a CK group, you must make separate reservations for Good Friday and for Easter. If you have a child who could benefit from special needs ministry, check that box on the reservation form. Well, a final note, thank you for joining me on the journey of Lent these past 30 days and counting. During Holy Week, we'll have special reflections and daily practice. If you'd like to get those, sign up on your Connect card or at crossroadscolorado.com/Lent. Again and again, the sun does rise, and after the year we've been through, Easter sunrise will seem like more than an everyday miracle. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Good morning. It is good to see you if you are in the room. Thanks for being here. If you're connecting online, thank you for tuning in. If you're out in the atrium enjoying the sunshine out there, hold on a second, I'm going to cough. Okay, there we are. I'm back. It is good to have everybody together as we hit the pause button in our week and are just together in this space. So listen, we're going to do something this morning. I'm going to invite everybody. If you're in the room, you can stand up. If you are at home, feel free to stand up and be weird, but you can stay sitting down. That's fine. But we're going to do what's called kind of a call to worship. And I would just encourage us in this moment to just kind of take a minute and breathe a little bit, and all the things that are swirling around in our lives, just kind of imagine it all just kind of releasing in this moment for the next hour or so that we're together to just have an experience where we encounter God together, whether we are connecting digitally or in person. So we're going to do what's called a call to worship, which is where as the leader, I'll say something and then we'll all say something in response. We'll all say something in response. I'll start over, okay? I will start this ship. I'll turn it around and we'll start over, okay? And so you'll see it'll say all on the screen for where we'll all say this together. And it's just an opportunity for us to just kind of verbally say, I'm here, I'm present. I'm inviting God to work in my life in a unique way together, all right? So let's just do this once well. What do you say? All right, so here we go. Every week is a new week, another chance for all of us to say, here I am, use me. And every day is a new day, another chance for all of us to say, thank you for yesterday and thank you for tomorrow. And every hour is a new hour. It's another chance for all of us to say, again and again, make me new. We do not come to this place to stay the same. We come to this place to be changed. So let us be grateful to God who created yesterday, will create tomorrow, and even now is creating something new. Let's sing together.
Well, it's great to see you here today at Crossroads. Thank you for being with us. If you're joining us online, we're glad that you're joining us from home. So why don't we start by singing some songs together?
This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name, and now your joy awaits my praise. I give thanks, come on. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love isn't failing, Lord, I am grateful. When I was down, you brought me out, set my feet on higher ground. So here I stay, you are my God, your faithfulness, my solid rock. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love isn't failing, Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love isn't
livecast. I am Wendy, and it is so great to be here with everyone in the room and all of you watching online.
And I'm Dennis, and I'm glad to be here as well today. And everybody in the room, turn around and wave at people. Say, hey, good morning through your face mask, smile with your eyes. Glad you're here. And if you're watching online, wave to the people in the room, or maybe just have another sip of coffee.
We would like to take a moment to talk with you about today's Connect card. So if you're in the room, take out your Connect card and wave it to me. Wave it out. So the Connect card is available digitally at crossroadscolorado.com/gather, as well as on paper if you're watching in person today. Each week, you'll find check boxes on your card that will help you in taking your next steps with the Crossroads community. Everything you hear mentioned in the service is on that Connect card, including next steps for what God is inviting you into, as well as registration links and more.
And one of the things on the box today is the CK Crossroads Kids groups.
That's right.
And we're meeting in person, nursery, all the way through the 5th grade now.
That's right.
Just a couple weeks ago, we added the upper elementary grades. So if you have kids and grandkids, neighbor kids, and you want to have them take part in our wonderful, great kids program.
Right.
I mean, they can do it. And we even have some that meet in homes.
That's correct.
So if you go, I don't want to come to the facility, we can figure out how to get your child in one in a home as well. So if you want to be a part of our kids groups Connect card, online and in the room, just check that box and we'll get you some information.
That's right. And you'll also notice an Easter section on the Connect card. Easter is almost here.
2 weeks from today.
That's right. Easter means spring. I'm so excited. Everything that Katie mentioned in the video earlier is on there. We would love to send you links for the in-person reservations, which are very important, how to invite your friends and family to the Easter services, and more. So check those boxes or visit crossroadscolorado.com/Easter. I'd also like to invite you to serve as a volunteer during one of our Easter services. Volunteering during Easter is a great way to get plugged in and to meet people in our community. Dennis, did you know that that's how I got started long time ago?
Really? You were in a service.
Yes, and
card.
I checked one of those boxes, and that's how it all started.
You go. Now she's the star volunteer.
Well, I don't know about that, but so if you haven't already, make sure that you check one of those boxes to sign up for an Easter service with one of our amazing teams.
Yeah, and I think that the teams that I get to lead are some of the most fun teams.
Well, most fun, Dennis. What?
Hospitality, guest services.
Maybe family ministries. You know,
Anyway,
yes.
We have a saying around here, attend one, serve one. And so we want to roll out the red carpet and just create a friendly environment for people for Easter.
Right.
And you could help do that.
Yes,
so
right.
check that box.
Yes.
Boom. We'll
Yes.
get in touch with you.
Right.
And the other thing is every time we gather, almost every time, we give people an opportunity to express their own generosity through their giving of their treasure, their money. And so there's a way to do it online. You can do it via your phone. If you're in the room, there's a giving envelope in your program. You can drop it in the orange kiosks, the little boxes that you see scattered around on your way out. And you can do it through Venmo now.
Correct.
So I just want to say thank you to people who give generously. And it's the way that we move our mission forward. It really, it's one of the fuels that helps us continue to have an influence in our community. So thank you.
That's correct. And it's now time to continue with more music. So I will hand things back over to the band.
Well, hey, good morning. If you're in the room, will you stand? We have got a couple songs here together.
I've been held in your hands.
a perfect peace. All the loved ones I hold deep. All my hopes and dreams and all my fears. I would choose to trust your name in everything. In everything. Let's sing. I will look up. Sing with me. I will look up, for there is none above you. I will bow down and tell you that I need you, Jesus, Lord of oh Jesus, Lord of I will take you at your word. Jesus, you have taken all of me. All my life is in your hands. You are my strength. You are my strength. Let's sing it out. I will look up, for there is none above you. I will bow down and tell you that I need you, Jesus,
Good morning. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. If I collapse this morning, don't worry about it. I'm just trying to recover. We did Mount Elbert yesterday. Barely. I want to say barely. Don't be impressed. I about died. But I made it back here. But everything's a little weird this morning. I'm not going to lie to you. I still haven't quite fully recovered from that little venture. But I will say, at about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I was the highest person in Colorado. The absolute highest person in Colorado. It's a good Colorado joke, right? I mean, I've been waiting for that one for a long time. So, hey, listen, if you're tuning in online, thank you for being here. If you're out in the atrium, if you're here in the room, my name is Ryan. I'm the lead pastor here at Crossroads. We're in a series called Again and Again, where we are just kind of journeying and walking through this Lent season. And so hopefully you have been able to follow along with that devotion guide every day if you'd like to. And we've been doing the daily drops of hope, just kind of focusing on that. And there's readings throughout the week, so you can jump in and be a part of this journey. Our anchor verse for this series is found in Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. Lamentations is a book in the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, which was really written in a deep time of despair. That's what a lament is, and it was written in a time of exile. But it says this: in that very deep, very difficult season for the life of Israel, the poet writes, "The Lord's acts of mercy are not exhausted. His compassion is not spent. They are renewed each morning. Great is your faithfulness." What a great encouragement for us, that even in the most difficult of seasons, that the mercy of God, we could just say mercy, is always present. It's never exhausted, and that's really powerful. And so today, we're kind of unpacking and talking about this line, that again and again, we are reformed. We are reformed. If you're a fill-in-the-blank kind of person, you can grab those out of as you came in this morning, or if you're online, you can download the talk notes if you want to follow along. I always say they just give you hope that it will end. Like one more fill-in, right? But this idea of being reformed means to be changed in such a way as to be improved, right? When something is reformed, it goes through a process of transformation and is better at the end of it. It's better. And there's a pattern of reformation. There's a pattern that we go through that happens, whether it's the reformation of a business or your personal life, a part of your life. And that is this, you go through this pattern of construct. You have a construct. You have something, say your marriage, right? And this is how a marriage is supposed to be, and you have it kind of figured out. But then all of a sudden you have a deconstructing experience, right? There's a season where all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a second. What I thought was so true, so important, what it had to be, we kind of go through this season of deconstruction, and we come out of that into a period of reconstruction, which is something better, which is something new in a sense. I had a moment in my life where I went through really an eye-opening experience of my own kind of reformation, and it happened in Eagle, Colorado in 2018. I think it was 2018, yeah, 2018. I had gone out to Eagle, Colorado for this little retreat with a group of people I had been invited to go out to, and I wasn't sure that I really belonged there. There were all these people that had done really great stuff, and I was just me. And so I wasn't sure about going anywhere, but I got invited by this guy, and he invited me to come out to this retreat and go, and one of his spiritual mentors kind of led this retreat for 3 days with a group of guys. And so I said, okay, I'll go. And I'm not a kind of person who loves being around people I don't know. I generally don't like to be around people in general, let alone people I don't know. That's just not my, I don't know why that is, but that's just kind of me. So I was nervous about going anyway. I didn't really want to go. I almost didn't get on the plane because I got a phone call the night before, and the one person that I knew who was hosting this retreat, they do it every year, that invited me, he's like, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be there. It's I don't even feel like I should be here. These are all really important people that have done really amazing things. I don't even belong at this retreat. And so he's not going to be there. So I almost don't get on the plane, but I get on the plane, I go, and have a really powerful experience during these kind of 3 days. It was really during those 3 days that I felt like this whisper from God in the answer to this question of who are you, right? So we were kind of talking about true self, false self, the person who was kind of leading this conversation. There was only about 15 of us there. We were out at a ranch there in Eagle. And this big question was, well, who are you? Talking about false self and true self kind of stuff. And I was at a point where I didn't quite, I think, fully understand the question, because I always went into well, what do you do? That was kind of me. And I really just started to ask this question of what is going to be the next season of my work? What is that going to be marked by? And I got this whisper of reforming. That's what I really felt like at the end of the day, my heart, my life was really about being a reformer. And it kind of came out of this kind of thinking that I was surrounded by deconstructionism. There was just a lot of things happening in the religious tradition that I had grown up in, that I was a part of. And there's a lot of just deconstruction happening. And I just felt like we were stuck. I felt like as a broad church in this kind of pan-evangelical way of thinking, that we had just become kind of stuck. And there was just this deconstructing phase that we were in, but we weren't actually reforming. We weren't actually looking at the whole, saying, okay, yeah, let's do some deconstruction, but we need reconstruction as well. And so it was in that moment in 2018 that I really felt like the Spirit whispered that this was going to be the next season of your ministry life, of your work life, of really focusing in on what does it mean to be a reformer in this context of a religious tradition that you loved. And that, actually was kind of the beginning of the journey, which ended up with our family being here. So sorry. And so we're going to go through this process. But what I realized in that retreat was that we oftentimes do get stuck. We get stuck in deconstruction phases, or what we could call disorder phases. Richard Rohr wrote a book on the wisdom pattern, which I think is the same thing as reformation in a sense, where you go from order, your life seems fine, you have a disordering event, and then you come out of it reordered, right? Transformed. It's the process of, some would call it transformation, enlightenment, different words for it, but there seems to be this process you go through. But oftentimes we get stuck in that middle phase of disorder, or we get stuck in deconstruction, and all we can see is what isn't working. And maybe you've had that experience in a relationship in your life. Maybe you've had that experience as a parent or at a workplace where all you can see is what isn't working, but you're not actually seeing a movement forward. And when that happens in faith, when we get stuck in that middle phase of deconstruction in our faith, to me, it feels like a dumpster fire, right? It just feels like all we're doing is just throwing everything away. Well, this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. And that really is the fuel, right, for the dumpster fire. It's this false dualism of all or nothing, right? So when we go through a phase of deconstruction in our faith, or in a portion of our faith, right? Maybe there's something that you were raised believing, and you go through an experience in life that disorients that. Well, all of a sudden there's this belief that, now I have to throw it all away. I have to throw the whole thing away. If I find something in the Bible that, I see as contradictory, I just have to throw it all away. And then we get stuck in this process because we live in this dualistic way of thinking that it's all or nothing. That for the Bible to be valuable, it has to be 100% accurate in all things science, right? And you're going we're bringing this unrealistic expectation to a text that was written, some parts that go back 4,000 years ago, right? But all of a sudden we go, maybe it wasn't 7 literal days of creation. And we got to throw the whole thing out, right? And that just fuels this dumpster fire of faith and leaves a lot of people disenfranchised because we never actually come out of it. And so I wonder if wisdom and scripture could offer us a better way of thinking about this deconstructing fire, right? And the whole process of reformation. And there's a couple of verses that I just want to look at today. In Luke chapter 12, verse 49, it's really interesting. Jesus makes this statement about fire. And he says, I've come to set upon the earth fire. And how I wish it were already blazing. Now, if you're in a framework of dumpster fire, right, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, burn it down, right? And we see that as a very kind of deconstructive way of thinking. But I honestly think there's a better way to think about that. And Jesus is certainly in this passage talking about things that need to change, right? And that there is this kind of tension that exists. But fire is a tool. Fire is a tool for growth and change. So I spent about 12 years of my adult life in Maine. And in Maine, they grow blueberries. You ever have Maine blueberries or blueberry jam? Anybody in the room? And you're online? You just if you're online, you just totally tuned out and went to the grocery store to buy Maine blueberry jam. So we have blueberry fields, and they have low bush blueberries and high bush blueberries. And it's interesting that they burn the blueberry fields. I never knew that. So one time I was driving out to Kennebunkport, where we lived. We were about 19 miles from the coast, and I think we're headed out there. And they're burning the fields. I was like, the fields are on fire. The fields, and that's what I think of. Like when I see fire, I think of destruction, right? I think of punishment. Like I was raised in a good kind of Pentecostal evangelical home. Like when you hear the word fire, you think hell, like get rid of the evil, right? And what I came to learn over times is that the blueberry fields would be burned every other year. There was a necessary part of the health of that field to produce blueberries. And I actually think that reforming faith, this whole process, and particularly that deconstruction or that disorder moment, is like burning the blueberry fields, right? And so they go out, and when they burn the blueberry fields, they set a perimeter, right? They say, this, we don't want to burn past here. And so I think what happens in our life, we set up that kind of perimeter in our faith. And we say, these are the things that I hold to as a matter of faith and conviction, right? And so there's certain things that I hold to that I don't burn past that edge. And as I've gotten older, and I realized exactly how much older I've gotten yesterday as I was out with these guys that were 15 years younger than me on this mountain. It's like, oh my gosh. But as I've gotten older, I realized that circle, right? There's just it just gets wider and wider. When you're younger, like you have so many of those boundary markers. And then as you get older and older and you kind of walk into what you don't know, you go, oh wow, like it's just that circle that I set is a lot wider than I ever imagined. But you kind of set that circle, and that's a pretty controlled burn, right? They set that field. And then what happens is they just kind of set that field on fire. Because in burning the field, it will encourage new growth. Right? The blueberry field it'll produce blueberries, but it will always diminish how many blueberries it produces if they're not burning the field. Because in burning that field, it takes the soil and it liberates the nutrients, right? There's that process. They deconstruct the field, they burn the field, and it starts to liberate nutrients. It destroys insects and disease organisms and weed seeds that are in it. And so they'll rotate their fields. Every other year, they'll burn apart. So if they had 10 acres and they want 5 acres of blueberries, that's how much you have to have 10 acres because you burn 5 every other year. And it increases the crop. And this, to me, feels like the pattern of what the Holy Spirit does in our lives, is that there's always something that's being burned. There's always something that we set that edge to that has to go through this deconstruction phase so that we can walk out of it into something better, something more full. Jesus said it like this. Jesus said, amen, amen. I say to you, I always love it when Jesus amens himself. Right? He doesn't even say it. He's just like, amen. I'm going to tell you this. He says, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. I think this is the same metaphor. It's the same analogy of a healthy fire that is burning a field, right? That there is this process, there has to be life, death, resurrection, right? There has to be this dying for something new and better. And so death really isn't just an end, but it's a beginning. And that's kind of how it works in the universe. Right? And all that we know, what we can see visibly, that death really is not just an end, but it actually is the beginning of something. And this is seen no more than in the concept of when a star goes supernova. Do I have any scientists in the house before I embarrass myself? Just want to make sure. So I'm not a scientist, right? But I learned just enough to make hopefully a little bit of sense out of this, because it really is an interesting analogy that in 1987, astronomers saw in the night sky a new appearance of light. And what they realized was this was a star that about 160,000 years ago, I think it was, went supernova, right? And so it became known as supernova 1987A. 1987A, for the year that they saw it. Now, you can't see this anymore because the light has passed by, so it's gone. But what it showed us was that there was this star that about 160,000 years ago had cooled down so much that it had kind of imploded in on itself. And when the star cools down, it starts to collapse. And so something about 100 million times the size of the Earth collapses in about 15 seconds, right? 15 seconds, 100 million times the mass of the Earth collapses in 15 seconds. And because it collapses so fast, it creates kind of a shock wave. And that shock wave sends out from the furthest edges of the star particles into the rest of the universe. And these particles are elements. And almost every element, scientists tell us now that almost every element of the Earth that makes up living things, it flows out of a star that goes supernova, when a star actually dies, when it cools down so much. And so that star not only will emit kind of like the elements that are absolutely necessary for a star, but it will also, in that process, what I've read is it will create new elements, right? That creation itself is creating things. And so new stars and new planets get formed through this process of a star dying. Like it's baked into the way the universe was created, that it is a creative entity, right? And I've heard it said this way before, that God created things that create themselves, right? That are creative and generative in nature. And so we shouldn't miss this. I think when we see Jesus talking about a seed dying in the field, when we start talking about this idea of fire throughout the earth, we got to kind of reframe our brains that this isn't destruction, but this is creation, right? That this is the process of reformation, that whole process of order, disorder, reorder, of life, death, resurrection. And so reformation, we can see it's the divinely ordered cosmic process of death and resurrection. Like it is in all of creation. And if one of my circles that I hold to, right, I hold this circle that behind the universe, behind this creation is what we call God, right? That there is this God and that we've been invited into understanding this God personally through the person of Jesus. And that circle, that God creates things that creates things. And in this, it's this process that what's fascinating is like the earth itself, from a scientific perspective, could not exist had there not been a star that died and went supernova, basically, to cast the elements necessary. Now, I understand that that's a little different than Genesis 1, but I've never really thought of the Bible as a science book. But I think there's deep truth in Genesis 1 that really isn't meant to be about creation, just so you don't think I'm abandoning Genesis 1. I think it's Genesis 1 through 3 is very important in understanding a lot more than creation and science. But this is this cosmic process that is just baked into the universe, that we would not have new stars, we wouldn't have new planets, we wouldn't have what we have if there wasn't a death that we experience. So what does this have to do with your like normal everyday life back here on planet Earth? Nothing at all. I'm just trying to fill some time here. No, what does it have to do with? Okay, so listen, if baked into the cosmic universe is this process of life, death, resurrection, order, disorder, reorder, construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, here's what I would say to us. Trust the process. Trust the process. Don't get stuck. So a couple of places we get stuck. I think we get stuck at the order phase. We like order, the construct, right? And so we go, this is it, this is my life. And so we do everything we can, oftentimes to just stay the same. But that's not the way the universe works. It's not the way God has created us. It's not the way that we grow. There has to be a deconstruction. There has to be a disordering if we're going to grow. I mean, we see that. I know you probably wouldn't believe this or not. Underneath this shirt, there is like a muscle somewhere. I can tell you there's not many given my experience yesterday, right? But what I do know about muscles are the only way that you grow muscle is you take a order constructed of muscle and you tear it, right? And you basically harm that muscle so that it heals and it grows, right? It's just baked into everything. And it flows out from the physical world into our spiritual world, into our soul care. So our marriages, what happens when we get stuck in a marriage or in a relationship because we just want it here. But it always has to go through a disordering phase so that it can come into something better, so that it can be reformed. And we get stuck and it becomes stale, whatever it might be. But then all of a sudden we can also get stuck in kind of like the disorder phase. And we don't trust the process that I'm supposed to walk through the pain. I'm supposed to walk through this disordering so that on the other side comes out something stronger. Right? If that star never goes supernova, if that star never implodes on itself, we don't have the release of the elements that are necessary to create new planets, to create new stars, to move forward. And so I would say we have to learn to trust the process. And then I would say we also have to learn, don't rush or be afraid of or dismiss the disorder phase. Right? If God is reforming us again and again, if God is creating again and again, if God is resurrecting again and again, then we have to be careful that we don't rush through that middle part where we just are being deconstructed. And that's hard to do, because some of those things that we held to be so true, all of a sudden we realize maybe that's not one of the burning edges, right? I mean, I can think of ways in which I grew up, the religious tradition that I grew up in, that I held on to is like, this is so fundamental, this has to be. Like, I grew up in a religious tradition that said, here's the 16 fundamental truths. Like, we had more fundamental truths than there were commandments in that God gave. Right? For the first time in my life, I just thought about that, and that's funny to me. That the God of the universe behind supernova said, here's 10 things to kind of live by. And we were like, no, 16's better, right? And then you hold those things, but then you go, and I can remember like having these moments where you go, man, that's not a circle that I'm willing to burn past that circle. And I'm willing to just see, but I'm also at this space in my life where there are circles that I'm not going to burn past. But I've got a feeling that as we, as people, we try to grow, this is the growth process, that those edges are always expanding. And so we can't be afraid of that. And I would just encourage you, if you're in a space in your life, maybe it's as a parent, maybe it's as a spouse, maybe it's in your work, and you're feeling disoriented, don't be afraid of that. Like, lean into it and trust that God is at work here. That I can't get to a place of new, I can't get to a place of reformation without walking through that. But walk through it. Don't stay there. It's not an all or nothing deal. We recognize it as part of the divine process, that there's a field that's being burned spiritually so that there can be more blueberries being produced. And when you're in that phase, I just would encourage you, just remember the power of how questions. How questions. Why questions will keep you stuck in the dumpster fire. I just really believe that. Why is this happening? Why are you doing this? Why? I think those questions have a tendency to put us in a loop, like just a loop of self-destruction. But I think there are questions that start with the word how. Like, how do I become better from this? Like, how does God grow something new in me? How are more blueberries produced because of this burning that's taking place? Right? How do I walk out of this stronger in my faith? How do I walk out of this freer in my faith? What is God liberating me from? Right? What fear has been holding me in my faith journey, that this deconstruction is actually burning away that fear, and I don't have to be afraid anymore. And what's so powerful about the how questions is, like, we can ask this beautiful question, like, how does this make me and our world better? Right? I actually like to end all of my kind of talks on Sunday with this big question, like, why? So what? Why does it matter? Well, I think that the idea is that we are growing and becoming better, and we're making the world a better place. And I think the Bible language for that is glorifying God, but I think the normal everyday language for that is making the world better, seeing myself grow and become better. And so this reformation process of order, disorder, reorder, of construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, like that whole thing is a key to new and improved. It's new and improved. I always want my faith to be new and improved. I want my marriage to always be new and improved. I want my parenting to be new and improved, but I can't get to new and improved if I don't walk through a process of deconstruction and into reconstruction. So there's a pastor, reverend, who is an Anglican bishop named Mark Dwyer, and he said this. He said, about every 500 years, the church has a rummage sale. The church has a rummage sale. And it basically follows culture, but it says that this is a time of great upheaval, where there's a questioning of things that we held sacred or dear, or what we said. And so about every 500 years, there's kind of a reformation, so to speak, that takes place. And you kind of track it. And so around the year 500, in this time period, say, 50 years prior, 50 years plus, there's this big rummage sale that's taking place. So you have the fall of Rome that happens around 500, which changes everything because Rome had become the kind of tip of the spear for Christianity and its spread and its growth when it became the state religion under Constantine. And so Rome is falling around the year 500. There's 3 church councils that are taking place where they're kind of coming together and saying, well, what does it mean for the nature? What is the nature of Jesus? Did Jesus have 2 natures, divine and human, or just one nature? And so these councils that at Ephesus are taking place in the Chalcedon Council, and they're really shaping Christianity. And right now, you got to imagine Christianity is about 5 years old, right? So what are the kinds of questions that your 5-year-old deals with, right? That's what the church was dealing with. I mean, it's just true, right? I mean, I love the analogy that about every 100 years, the church, the big universal church, grows by 1 year, right, in terms of development. So you fast forward another 500 years, you have the Great Schism. So what happens is your children enter into like early teenage, early adolescent life, right? Right? They're like, I don't need you. You're like, oh yeah? We'll see. Well, that's kind of what happens. The Great Schism takes place, and you have the splitting of the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Roman Catholic Church takes place. And so now you have a patriarch leading the Eastern Orthodox Church, and you have the Pope leading the Roman Catholic Church. Right? Now you fast forward another 500 years, we have the Reformation that takes place, what's become known as the Protestant Reformation, which is where part of the Roman Catholic Church says, hey, wait a second, it's time to rebel. I've got my driver's license. I don't need you anymore, right? Because that's what happens when you turn 15, 16, 17 years old. And so now there's this Reformation with Martin Luther that kind of begins it in his 95 Theses, and here's what's the issue, and you have the Swiss Reformation that's taking place, and this is happening in the English church. So during this whole time period, we have kind of the Roman Catholic Church is, I don't want to use the word fracturing or splitting because that could be seen as really negative. I think it's a positive thing that's happening, but you have the birth of the Anglican Church, you have Protestant Church, you have the Swiss Reformation taking place. Then you fast forward 500 years, in the year 2000, we're seeing what has become known as the Great Emergence, the emerging church. This great emergence was written about by a woman named Phyllis Tickle, who has since passed away. 2012, her book, The Great Emergence, came out. And it was what was emerging out of Protestantism, right? Now, just as a side note, right, for those of you that might geek out on church history, so we're now, you and I are sitting, and our experience has been with about, if you grew up Protestant, your experience has been with about 25% of the Big C church, right? So it split in 2 around the year 1000, and then 1500, that split in 2. And so now it's happening again. Right, so we have such a teeny vision for like the Big C church because we've lost a lot of the great mystery out of the Eastern Orthodox Church, whatever it might be. We're revolting against a sliver of the church, and we actually took some of the worst parts of the church and like doubled down on things in our Protestant Reformation. But now there's this new thing that's emerging. And there's lots of research being done over the last 20 or 30 years as to what's happening within the Protestant church. And we're seeing like a resurgence, like flowing out of Protestantism, this like callback to mystery, which like the Eastern Orthodox Church has like the foothold on mystery, really. But it's this saying, hey, you know what? Like we want to embrace mystery over certainty. Like we get it. Like our German Reformation brain, we really can't understand everything we think we can, but we can't, right? So the Protestant Reformation was really driven by a lot of academics, and it's wonderful, but there's this new movement. There's a movement within it for gift-based leadership versus like ordained leadership, right? And so what does it look like to say this person has a gift given by God and to release that gift? There's a very missionally minded emergence that's coming, that this is a group of people who are very activated. They're not thinking, this movement is not thinking about how to grow itself, but it's thinking, how can we serve the world? How can we actually make the world better? How can we go and alleviate hunger? How can we go and bring peace on earth, kind of thinking. There's a movement movement into high touch, right? So away from high tech to high touch. So what does it mean to be very familial with one another? What does it mean to care for and love? And there's this emergence that's taking place. And what the research is showing, which is so wonderful and so fascinating, is that whenever the church goes through one of these rummage sales, right, there's this big fear that it's all falling apart. And you might be of a generation where you're like watching things that you really valued in church, and you're going, oh my gosh, what is going on? right? Now, hopefully you're not thinking back 300 years ago because you weren't around then, but maybe you are. But but what happens in like church leadership, especially, we go, all these things that we held sacred and have held sacred for hundreds and hundreds of years are being thrown out. And we're going, what's going on? But here's what the research shows, that the Church of Jesus Christ is always stronger after these periods. It's always stronger. It's always more diverse. And so the church, what it looked like 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago is very different than what it looks like now. Here's a picture, I think, of what the church is looking like more and more now. Those two bottom rows are kind of the scattered church, what it looks like. The two top rows are more the gathered church, what church leadership look like. And Father Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest who I really appreciate and have been shaped by a lot of his writings, he says, with each rebirth, Christianity becomes more inclusive and universal as it always was meant to be. And I think that's where hope is. And I think hope is here. Hope is always in that moment of more inclusive, more universal, this understanding of God at work in all things, redeeming all things. And the more that the Church of Jesus Christ looks like the world of Jesus Christ, the better off we are. And so as we think about this idea of God reforming us again and again, let me just ask you the question. What are you being invited into today? I always believe that the Spirit of God is inviting us into something. I don't think that the Spirit of God is always calling us to do something. I kind of grew up in that environment. You always had a task, always had something to do if you were going to be a part of whatever God was doing. But I do think that the Spirit is always inviting us into something. Sometimes it's to be, exist, to feel something. Sometimes it is to do. But what are you sensing God inviting you into in this idea of order, disorder, reorder, or construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, this three-part process of reformation? I hope that you're experiencing the Spirit inviting you into embrace the disorienting events of your life as part of reformation. And I think that's redemption. I think that that's the beauty of God, who takes these things that would be seen as just totally disorienting and destructive. But God, in the goodness and the grace, says, no, if you'll lay it at my feet, metaphorically speaking, God doesn't have feet, but if you lay it at my feet, I'll use it. I'll use it for your good, for my glory, for love in this world. And so we sometimes run and we hide and we end and we get overwhelmed, but maybe we just need to be okay with those disorienting events and see them as part of a process. Maybe even an understanding of sanctification, right? Being perfected by those struggles. Maybe God's inviting you to make two lists. So for those of you that are tactile, kind of spiritual folks, make two lists. Make a list of things that promote the status quo and things that break the status quo. And you could pick an area of your life. So you could pick my marriage. What are the things that break the status quo in my marriage? What are the things that break the status quo? You could think of it in your spiritual life. What are the things that keep my spiritual life just plugging right on this status quo kind of thing? And what are the things that really move me out of it? Think about it from a career perspective. And then ask the question, well, where is the Spirit moving in all of that? And sometimes it's just an exercise that helps us to learn to embrace those disorienting, deconstructing moments. But don't stay there. For God's sake, don't stay there. Just see it as part of the process and trust it. Trust that process. And maybe you're interested in this idea of the rummage sale and how Christianity grows and has these kind of like exponential moments in time. And you might want to check out the book, The Great Emergence by Phyllis Tickle. Read that. I would encourage you to do that as well. And don't freak out. Like this, that's the pattern. The pattern is freak out, right? Whenever something starts to deconstruct in what we hold so dear, like we freak out. But then all of a sudden we realize, man, that was just a false circle in the blueberry field. I can burn more of that field and be healthier and grow. And when we do that, now we're in a process of being reformed again and again and again. And we look for it in our lives. We don't run from it. We look for it. And we don't have to be afraid of the moments where we start to question things or we wonder what's going on, because we can go back to this idea that God is good that love always transforms. And so to be transformed means that some part of my life needs to be transformed. It needs to be changed. Let me pray for you. God of the universe, of supernovas and blueberry fields and dumpsters, would you open our hearts up to the truth of Reformation, that it has its unpleasant moments. Because Reformation means that we take what is orderly and makes sense, and then there's something introduced that just disorients us. And we can be so afraid of that moment. But help us to set good, strong circles on the field, and then just allow the burn to happen so that we might look more like you. So the toxins in our spirituality could be burned so that there could be new crops grow. And may we have a disposition towards this process in our lives, that just as a blueberry field needs to be burned every other year, and just as a star in its cycle is going to go into supernova so that new things can be created, may we, in a sense, welcome this pattern in our lives and trust it. Help us to not be afraid, Lord. Even though we know it will be difficult and painful, may we just trust you in the middle of it. In Jesus' name, amen. Check out this little video.
I can feel change inside of me. It's a slow burn. Change usually starts out hot, defensive, angry, a self-righteous blanket of, I'm right and here's why. I wrap it around my shoulders like a barricade. I fight the temptation to lean forward, to play the challenger, to argue with confidence. But in time, almost always, the heat fades. The air leaves the balloon. The audacity of it all starts to wear off. And eventually, what I am left with is myself and a big open sky. It's colder here. It's quieter. I can hear my thoughts. And in this big, wide openness, I'm able to say out loud, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I need to learn. Maybe it's time for change. Maybe that's okay. And if I'm quiet and if I'm paying attention, I can usually hear God whisper inside of me, good work, my child. Now, keep digging.
Keep digging. Don't ever give up on the process. It happens over and over again and again in our lives. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you for tuning in. If you are connected online, thank you for being a part of it. Next week is Palm Sunday and then Easter following that. And we're excited for this season ahead. If you're here today or if you're tuning in online and you'd like someone to pray with you, you're going through a difficult circumstance. And by the way, difficult is not bad. There are a lot of good things that come into our lives that just prove to be difficult, and we would just like somebody to pray with us. If that's you, there'll be some folks up here in the front that would love to pray with you, or you can text the word prayer to 970-500-0970, or click the prayer button on the online campus there, and someone will certainly be reaching out to pray with you. If you're in the room, thank you for filling out that Connect card and your offering envelope. You can drop those in the orange Hope is Here kiosks on your way out. If you're online, you can just submit those digitally, and that is wonderful. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Hope that you have a meaningful week, an opportunity to experience God's grace and God's love as you serve and love the people around you. And we'll see you next week for Palm Sunday.